Back with us again this week and to discuss a new book. And here it is, Mission Shengzhan, written by Tuhin Sinha as well as Clark Prasad. This is a fascinating book, and in case you haven't got it as yet, it's about a pandemic. Imagine where that's happening right now. We're right in the middle of one. So it's extremely topical. It's pacey. It's a thriller. I don't want to give away plot points because that would be unfair to you, the reader. But it's available in all your bookstores. I'm going to hold it up again once more. It's available in all the bookstores and as well as on Amazon. So it's an easy order. Click away. You won't regret it. In case you've been sort of struggling with the hows, whys, wheres, whats of the present situation humanity finds itself in, this book is going to give you some entertaining, thrilling answers that might be true or may just be conspiracies. We don't know, but that's the world of fiction. And Tuhin, I know for a while. In fact, I know him from the time he wrote his first book. So welcome to Kaleidoscope, Tuhin.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Clark,
hello,
welcome
good evening. Hi.
Hi. Tuhin is, of course, a regular on TV news debates. You might recognize him from his defense of the Bharatiya Janata Party and the government on TV. And writing is really how I know him, because I knew him before this present avatar when he came out with his debut novel, that thing called Love. And Tuhin had a lot of female fans at that point of time, if I remember.
Well, I would be devastated if you tell me I don't have now.
He used to get proposals and I don't know, love letters and all kinds of things. These were the years of the Gmail chat.
Well, I'm not sure how you are aware of it, but I guess, yeah.
Because you told me about it. You told me about your suffering as a best-selling male author at that time. You said, I get so many love letters.
A politician has a short memory span, so I don't remember the conversation.
But you're here as a writer, so we writers have great memories, mostly. But thank you so much, Tuhin, for coming in, as well as Clark. It's a pleasure to meet you, Clark. I was reading up about you. Your Twitter bio says you're a conspiracy realist. If you can explain to us what that means exactly.
Well, it's more like the futurology. Sometimes we think things may happen, things may not happen. So the world of conspiracy theory is like in the negative shades now. But it's about speculating some things which can be alternate hypothesis. Now, if the hypothesis becomes true after some times, it's a fact. But till it becomes a fact, it's a conspiracy in a way. Like if you put in the reason for the Vietnam War and the U.S. entering, it was said that a boat was shot and U.S. soldiers died. It was said in the newspapers after 2 decades, and the declassification happened. So the false news. So.
Tuhin, are you experiencing some audio issues with Clark?
Yes, bit of it.
Yeah.
Do I need to do anything? Mute myself.
No, that's okay. I think he'll go. He's gone out. He'll come back in. Tuhin, you've written, I think, maybe about 8 to 10 books now. You're quite prolific. How do you find the time to do this along with your very active political career?
Well, that's the reason I have a co-author now working with me. But yes, I mean, I'm glad, we started this journey around the same time, 2006, 2007, when Almost Single and that thing called Love came out. And in those days, we didn't have a show. So,
we had a show, but I don't think we would be invited to it.
NDTV Books. NDTV is an alien world even now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in those days, it was very difficult to break in as an author because there were that many books that were being published. And probably it was easy. If you had broken in, it was easy to create a name for yourself. Now it's the other way around. It's very easy because there are just too many books. Almost everybody is an author. There are multiple publishers. but it's that much more difficult to,
Yes.
create a position for yourself. So after my first book was published, I think I took it up as a challenge to experiment with every new book rather than writing sequels and prequels about my girlfriends, which had I done, maybe I would have probably made more moolah. But then
Hmm.
it was a conscious journey which I had embarked upon. And national security is an issue which had always been close to my heart. It was something which I had been meaning to venture into. But obviously, in the last 3 years, due to paucity of time, even though I had a plot in mind, I couldn't. So
Hmm.
around 2019, in the later part of 2019, Suraj, in fact, has been known to me for a good number of years. I think both of us have followed each other's journey. Suraj had written a book in 2013 called The Baramulla Bomber. So out of the
Hmm.
blue, I just, and I tend to be instinctive. I just messaged him, "Hey, do you want to collaborate on a project?" And we got chatting. So I had this plot which was largely, around national security, the India under siege feeling, because and that has nothing to do with my political ideology. But yes, I do feel that from the day that India was created, it has
Hmm.
been under siege in some form or the other. Either it's a demography war taking place in the northeast, or the later part from 80s onwards, the terror attacks. So we wanted to do a very innovative India under siege book. And after
Hmm.
40% of the book was written, that was the time the pandemic actually broke out, and we
Oh,
realized
really? Huh.
we could take it to another level altogether. So
Hmm.
that's how the
So Tuhin and Clark, you're telling me that your setting for this book was already a global pandemic, and then COVID happened. Is that the sequence?
well, that was a peripheral thing, the bio warfare, but we that was something we had to weave in somewhere. But when the pandemic broke out, we actually reworked the entire plot. So even now, like
Hmm.
this pandemic is a bio warfare. That's something the world acknowledges today, except for the car liberals, of whom we can't reason out much with them. But the book goes slightly beyond. It's about how the deep state in the US, in India, and a couple of other democracies have manipulated the pandemic to try and trigger regime changes, to manipulate political narrative. So it's about a futuristic war which India is battling very successfully. It's a medico, politico, espionage slash geopolitical thriller. It weaves in a lot of elements. And that's what makes, thankfully, it takes the book to another level. So honestly, when I had conceived it, from the time that I conceived and from the way it has shaped it, I think it's gone to another level. And much of the credit goes to Suraj because the conspiracy realist in him, you
Hmm.
know, he's a natural conspiracy realist, as he calls himself.
So I'm fascinated, Clark. Surat. Uh, what? First of all, why do you have a pen name called Clark? I think let's start with that. Can you hear us? I think he's having
You
trouble
need to
with.
unmute yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, Surat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. The host has mentioned me. Clark name, it's alter egos of Superman. Clark
Yeah.
was hero as a kid, running and screen in the old Christopher Reeve. And so I thought, if I have an alter ego, why can't I have Clark Prasad?
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I think he's having. It was perfectly fine, his audio and video, everything before we started. And sometimes we get jinxed like that, or we have a politician on our show, so maybe he sabotaged his co-author. I don't know, Tuhin, have you?
No, no, my focus. When I sabotage, it's only against the enemies of the nation, not. And we
Which
certify. We obviously certify who's the enemy of the nation.
So that's what I want to ask you. Keeping your politics in mind, how much of that influenced the plot? Who the bad guys were, who the good guys were, what you kind of hoped for the future of equations working out to be.
So my political ideology has been a part of my book's narratives for a long time now. So right from The Edge of Desire, which was released in 2012. which had elements of love jihad in Kerala
Mm-hmm.
at that point of time, because barring a small section of population which likes to live in denial, there is an overwhelming chunk today which likes to call the bluff of the enemies of the nation. For example, today Gilani has died. Now there are people obviously who are trying to figure out who's which farmer's son he is, but then an overwhelming majority today calls out the bluff of such people. So my books have been very candid that way. They have stood very fiercely for national interests. But yes, somewhere I do retain an independent thought process. For instance, in a 2018 book, which was on Kashmir, I had
Mm-hmm.
kind of predicted the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, which I had predicted would happen in around 2029. But then obviously, our
Mm-hmm.
great leaders ensured that they happen one decade earlier than that. But then,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of reorganizing the state, there was a different plan. So yes, the larger picture is the same. But yes, if I were to write fiction entirely the way, I were to think as a politician, then I might as well write non-fiction. Fiction gives me the liberty to tweak things a little bit while staying true to the larger picture.
Mm-hmm. Clark, this book is deeply researched. What was that process like for you,
Well,
researching for this book?
yeah, so the research is quite open. All the information is sort of backed by sources and all. And the process is years of things I've read, years of documentaries I've seen. I'm been a fan of, I would say, geopolitics since decades. As a kid, my father used to switch on the BBC radio, and I used to hear when I was growing up in Nigeria. So I grew up in Africa, so I've seen military coups. In fact, I have been in a plane hijack also, sort of 2.5 day. Me and my family. I was a
Wow.
kid that time, so a lot of experiences are there, and it's all sort of linking things together. So I always try to find the connections and all. Like I believe once one person told me that Suraj is someone who can find a conspiracy in everything, and everything is a conspiracy, something like that. So it's a matter of perspective. If it's seen the world in a different lens, but till no harm is done. So yeah.
You've also written a book on the US elections. So I
Oh
want
yeah.
to know from you, was there like the rigging and all of that Trump alleged in the recent elections? What's your take on it?
So wait for the second part. All I'll say is that if Biden has 81 million supporters and voters, where are they?
Hmm.
They
Hmm.
should be on.
Interesting.
He's more popular than Barack Obama. He's more
Yeah.
popular. He got more votes, 15 to 20% more votes than Barack Obama. So if President Obama, someone is more popular than Barack Obama, then one have to think that he should get a Nobel Peace Prize and whatnot. Let's see.
Not after Afghanistan, that's for sure.
We'll have to wait
But
and see. Those images are very sad and all, but history will have to see, because history is to, when we look back, we know the truth, and time things will happen. So we'll see. So, but wait for the second part. So we'll see. Will more things will come out.
okay. Tuhin, I want to know from you, since you are kind of in active politics and of course your party is in government in the center, the state, and there's another book that's come out on the deep state, that's a non-fiction by a journalist, which I'm reading presently. What has been your experience of the deep state? You do write about it in this book, so I want to, that's of course the fictional part of it. I want to know the non-fictional part of it from you.
Well, the deep state has essentially two components. The outward component, which is the professional protesters whom the Honorable Prime Minister has rightly described as Andolan GBs. But then the larger deep state is something we still don't know. Probably the bosses are calling the shots from foreign shores. There is huge money playing out to make India seem like a failed state. So, in fact, that is what the book attempts. It draws up a loose connection between China, a lot of disparate incidents happening across the globe. Something happening in China, something, a small radicalized gathering meeting in Turkey, two politicians drawing up a plot to destabilize India in Washington. And then you gradually discover that all of it is interconnected. So yes,
Hmm.
it has the reference of a fictitious UCC protest because the publisher, the editor, was very clear that we don't want you to depict a CEA protest, anti-CEA protest. So we have a fictitious anti-UCC protest, Uniform Civil Code protest happening, and two of the protesters are actually a front for Hawala money being
Hmm.
Hawala money flowing into the country, and a larger stabilization plan which is being worked out across the globe. So yes, the deep state is a reality, and Andolan GVs today are just the outer, covering of that reality. It runs deep, and I think many of the robust democracies of the world. I think it's a fight between the communist Islamist axis on the one hand and the League of Democracies. That's how I see the world politics shaping up
Yeah.
in the years to come.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the Islamist communist nexus on the one hand, fighting with the larger League of Democracies on the other.
I think there's something to that, Clark. What do you think? I mean, we are already seeing these kind of, I think, groupings taking place now. You
Mhm.
have America, France, India, sort of gravitating to each other. And then on the other hand, you have the Turkey, Malaysia, um, China, Pakistan. Interestingly, Saudi Arabia seems like somebody who will probably be on the America, India, France side of it. And you might have a Qatar who goes into this Malaysia and Istanbul side of it. So I'm not. So do you think it's? I think Tuhin used the right word. He said Islamist, not necessarily Muslim countries, but those with a more Islamist kind of worldview, aligning around China, despite the fact that they put Uyghurs in concentration
Because
camps, and nobody says anything. Pakistan, most of all, doesn't say anything. So, do you see this new configuration? And if it does come into some sort of polarity, what do you think the next 20 odd years are going to be like for the world?
So we have to look, if we look to the past, we can predict the future. And what is happening right now is not something which has not happened before. Whichever country has got the economic might and whichever country has got the military might together has made
Mm-hmm.
it. Like
Mm-hmm.
right now, we have the US dollar hegemony where they keep as a reserve currency. And before that, it was the British pound. Before that, it was the Spanish, when Spanish ruled the seas, then it was the Portuguese. So, so the point is that whoever controls the reserve currency, the money, and has the military power will always create points of view. What Tuin said is right, legal democracy. And if the democracies don't come together, no matter this is not the best form of government, but this is the only form of government which it is about participation. Otherwise, we have to look for the best form of government still to be found. But at least it ensures participation and discussion. If the democracies don't come together, the freedom is gone. It's over. It's like the Black Mirror episode where social credit score is going to come into play. You
Yeah.
can be shut out
Isn't China
completely.
already doing that? Isn't
China is
China
already
already
doing that. It's
doing
already
that?
doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you
Yeah.
and it's already done, and it's the systems are in place, and you'll have other countries also adopt in some way. So we will
Hmm.
see that's the future is going to happen. Social credit score is going to
Hmm.
come in. Your bank FD rates may be determined by your
Hmm.
thinking process or the behavior.
Right.
So it's going to come in. That's one of the dark
No,
future which is there.
I think you're right. I think it's already happening because employers actually go through people's social media profiles and then take decisions on whether they're politically on
Yeah, so
their side
that's
of the
that's
spectrum,
the
and
that's the
it's a
scary
kind of
part
an
because
unofficial way of doing it. I can see
yeah.
how it can get formalized into a point system very easily.
So this is where people will stop talking freely, and when you stop talking
Mm,
freely, thinking will go, and when thinking will go, it will be like the leftist area where you have to just say the same thing that the Politburo is great or this is great, that is great.
mm,
1984, George Orwell and Huxley, Brave New World. We are going
mm,
towards a combination of these two, and a small. My hometown is from Motihari, Bihar, and
mm-hmm.
that's the town where George Orwell was born. So
Oh, okay.
sometimes keep saying that somehow his ghost is inside me to think the world is going towards the 1984 thing. So I don't know, man.
It's a scary thing. If freedom,
Yeah.
people don't speak. And just give me 30 seconds. I'll just
Sure,
the
sure.
Bol- the Berlin Wall, which fell down in the 89, and that was the Cold War was very high. You have the East versus the West, and the Berlin Wall was there. And in it, so people used to try to jump over the wall. They used to be shot. But
Hmm.
that moment in history, I saw it in terms of whenever coming TV. We didn't have live TV that much, but it was coming
Hmm.
Doordarshan or on NDTV was not the world this week when was there. So so the soldiers had the guns ready. They had to fire. But when they
Hmm.
saw the people in row, because they wanted freedom, the soldiers said,
Hmm.
no, we cannot shoot. Because when people came on freedom. But now what has happened is that the deep state or whatever it is, how you can
Hmm.
police so many people? You can police so many people by other people, by the neighbors. So the
Hmm.
Stasi's or the Chinese Communist Party, where if you're doing something out of the ordinary, or you're pointing finger and suddenly you're sort of highlighted. So if people will control it. So unless the freedom loving people don't come out and speak, we are seen I'm seeing a future where freedom is going to be curtailed. Freedom of thought is going to be curtailed.
And if we look in the Indian context, Clark, you see that irrespective of whichever party is in power.
See, the parties, the Indian the citizens of India, the voters are very intelligent. They know who to vote, who not to vote. And I'll give you a small example. And this is the 20 before the 2019 election during the period. So my voting is in Bihar, so I actually go there and vote whenever it is. So
Hmm.
when coming back, I came by train and then
Hmm.
to Patna, then caught a flight to Bangalore, and then caught a cab. So between the journeys, I actually asked many people, and they're from different creed, and they all gave logical explanation why Modi ji is the best to be,
Hmm.
because they're aware. And these are different startup people, and they're aware of what's happening. The people are intelligent. We have to give them that particular credit. People are
Hmm.
intelligent about the information going out. People should know what is happening and where changes are happening, and the communication strong will know. So
Hmm.
the freedom of speech, like you say, who's the deep state? 65% of Pakistan economy is controlled by ex-army officers or someone in the military,
Hmm.
ISI and army. So the economy is technically controlled by them. So would they want peace? Question is that it's a big business.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we have to be aware, and when as individually aware,
Hmm.
uh, the danger is beware. So you put it this way.
Tuhin, are you as cautious and worried like your co-author about where we're heading?
Well, absolutely. Like I said, India, the for me the start of a national security threat is the distortion of religious demography, and the newer elements of warfare are something which get added along the way, and the distortion of demography which India has witnessed starting 1947 onwards is enormous. And in fact, most of Europe, or in fact, the entire Europe is facing a similar problem. So the means may change, but the core of a national security threat emanates out of distortion of religious demography. And I'm pretty firm on this count. But thankfully, today we have a prime minister, and in fact, the book actually represents many contemporary characters. That's been one of my strengths. That most of my stories have very strong interplay between the real and fiction. So we have created a fictitious Indian prime minister who's a prototype of our present prime minister,
Hmm.
Shiv Patel, who was 24/7 dedicated to the task of fortifying India's security interests, something which most Indian prime ministers in the past would not bother. So, in fact, if you look at the way we have handled China in the last 7 years, how many of the prime ministers or how many of our governments would have put such a staunch but principled opposition to a war, One Belt, One Road initiative of China way back in 2016, 2017. And in fact, this net diplomacy is something which has completely eaten Africa. which has completely eaten Pakistan to the extent that Pakistan behaves like a Pakistan. I'm sorry to use the word, but Pakistan virtually pimps itself to China all the time. I mean, giving out portions of land to extract undue favors. So, in that situation, for us to have dealt with China with with the way we have, with the clarity that we have in the last 7 years, whether it was Doklam, whether it was Popor, I think required a far-sighted leadership, which thankfully we have right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I've always believed that, like Saurav Ganguly triggered a complete change in the way we played international cricket. Modi ji is that Saurav Ganguly. Trust me, with the kind of change in leadership ethos which India has witnessed once again starting 2014, the best is yet to come. Because obviously, once you in recent past, when that leadership style is reiterated, the ones who are learning from him right now would only get better in the years to come. So the next 30, 40 years are going to be great for India. And despite the newer challenges, both from the Taliban issue and the bio warfare and the newer elements of warfare, I think India is fairly safe and fortified.
Yeah. And I just want to add one thing to
I
what
think before you come in, Clark, I think the next big issue is actually going to be water. So
Yeah.
I feel that that's where we're heading, and nobody's really talking about that. But go ahead, Clark.
Yeah, so just so what Tuhin said and what you said, I'll just add to that. Just imagine the infrastructure development happening in Northeast now. Roads have been built. We didn't even the borders road developed for mass transit or troops or something or tanks going out in there. So why was that ignored? My parents were in the Indian Army. My father was a medical doctor. Mom was as a nurse, was as in the AMC Army Medical Corps. My father has fought the 71 war. So I've heard stories. I've seen things, and things have now changed a lot. There's a lot of support is there, and to your point of water is very critical, very important. There are dams been built. That is going to be the next war, water wars. And China is facing a big demographic crisis where that's why they started allowing more kids now, because they're going to see within 10 years they're going to, in terms of there's going to be a big shift of more old people than younger population to support them. And the water is drying. They don't have enough water. You can just put China water crisis. There is a crisis, and next 5 years, this will be a point where a point of clash, the water wars. So we have to be prepared, and the call for Atmanirbhar, whether it's edible oils and the water conservation, which has been messaging out right now. So it may link up to that. But you're right, the water wars are it's coming. It's clear.
They're coming up.
Yeah, rain
This,
harvest. Yeah, yeah, just
the
rainwater
time is
harvesting and all has to be done. So yeah, thank you.
the time has breezed past. I can see we're nearly at 30 minutes, and I told you all it will be 20, 25 minutes. But I have some more questions. I want to know this, and since you're a conspiracy realist, and I told you I'm really into this. A lot of people are looking at the pandemic as a time of a resetting of the world. And it's sort of these meta individuals are rising to prominence, are in prominent positions. What are you making of all of this vibrational frequency and all those kind of conversations that are happening around this time?
Yeah, so there is a talk of the great reset happening, but this
Yeah,
reset is more around the economic side where to do it.
that's the
Now,
boring people. I'm
yeah,
talking about the interesting conversations about the reset.
yeah. So the one way to look at it is 1971, the US dollar let go of its gold standard classification that this is backed by gold. On 15th August 1971, exactly 50 years ahead, 15 August 2021, at the Golden Jubilee, Kabul happens. So the economic end happens in 1971 in terms of delinking of the currency with the gold, and now the military goes down. So when one power goes down, which takes its place? So
Yeah.
when Britain went down, you have US come in now, and even at that moment when Britain was going down, they were stretched out in wars, South Africa, World War II, other stuff and all. So US goes down. Now we have rise in China. Now who's going to counter China? We have to be independent and all. So just these two books are I just want to show. This
Yeah.
was the future. This was the future which was supposed to happen.
Asimov.
Asimov, but
Uh-huh.
this is happening right now. So
Yeah.
so it's our choice to know where we want to go. So we have to be positive, work together, and see whether the conspiracy is true or not. That's not for me to say, But where is patient zero? Who is he? Who he, she, and what is happening? And if you don't ask those questions, what happens next time? So it's
So
each
I
one of us have to think ourselves.
so for the final question, I'm going to ask you what are the five predictions you have to make for the future, and I'll have one question for Tuhin as well.
Right. So I cannot think right now all the five things, but one thing in the future I think will happen. There will be no cash. Cash will
Okay.
go out of the system.
Yeah.
With the power of mobile phones coming into perspective and getting unbanking, cash is going to go out of the system. So when that
Right.
happens, we have to live in a cash. In fact, in Nordic countries, I forgot the countries, they're already experimenting that one. There's no cash this one. Second, which is going to happen, UBI is going to come into play, universal basic income. A certain minimum amount of income will be given because with the advent of robotics, artificial intelligence, jobs will be sort of shifting towards the new generation. So the old
Mhm.
generation jobs will have to be taken away some time. So for those members, UBI is going to come into play, where the money is going to come from the central bank directly to the in terms of to the citizen. And if the citizen behavior is not good, maybe the UBI will be stopped. That's the Black Mirror episode. So these two things are going to happen in terms from the point of view of the economic side. And so these are the two on top of the mind I have right now. There are more, but for the TV show, I cannot share it right now. So
Okay. Yes, we will be on TV also. Where
yeah.
I'll have you back on my YouTube channel where we can discuss all of this
Oh
without
yeah,
any censorship.
politically correct in some way.
Politically, yeah. Tuhin, I want you to know how realistic are these scenarios. Number one, Mamata Banerjee will actually be the prime ministerial candidate in 2029. That's 2024, sorry, 29. I'm already jumping. But 2024.
Nahi chal bhai.
Okay, the next one is Congress will revive under Rahul Gandhi's leadership and there will be no split. Three is more immediate. Punjab Congress will split and Captain will fight his election on his own. Number five is, of course, another Bihari, Prashant Kishore. What do you see in his future? So over to you, Tuhin.
So I think you answered the first question yourself. Mamta could be a prime ministerial candidate in 2029 because I don't see any threat in 2024.
Okay.
So perhaps, they could start preparing for 2029. The second was I think it would be next to impossible for Congress to revive itself till it gets out of Rahul Gandhi's clutches. Because if you look at it, what is saddening is that just to retain the family's superiority, now they have started encouraging dissent and in fact backing the wrong sort of people. So personal loyalty is way superior to them compared to national interests or the party's interests, which is very sad. And I don't think the person has any ability to comprehend issues. On a day when just 2 days before India recorded 1 crore jabs, why would somebody keep questioning India's vaccination ability? That is where you don't have the ability to read your opposition. And because I have been on multiple debates about India's vaccine availability, I can tell you that most of these critics of this government, most of the opponents are so dumb, they don't even realize this much about their enemy, that this government can commit a mistake once, but it will never repeat the same mistake. So while your April and May were tough months when it comes, in terms of vaccine availability, by the end of May, or in fact by the mid of May, I was 100% sure we would achieve this target by August 10, which we have achieved now. Which unfortunately, the opposition doesn't seem to even have a basic understanding of their rivals in government. Captain, yes, I think there is a very high likelihood of him ditching the Congress party. And for that matter, anybody who has some amount of self-dignity today in the Congress should ditch this Congress party. Because ultimately, if people still believe that dynasts can continue to dominate over capable people, that kind of subservient mentality should have no role in a democracy. Prashant Kishore, yes, but perhaps Prashant Kishore being given a big role in Congress could be the only possible way the Congress can partially change the narrative around its performance, around the way it's moving ahead, because the Congress needs brains right now, and Prashant Kishore has some amount of brains.
All right, that was very well concluded. And for my viewers, you may have wondered why we hardly discuss the actual what is inside the book or any of that. It's purely because I don't want to give it away, and frankly, I don't see how you can do an interview on a book like this without kind of having spoilers. But I can assure you that you won't regret it. It's extremely pacey. It's very topical, like I mentioned earlier, and it's full of possibilities. And if you're the kind of reader who likes to go beyond the headlines, beyond what we are being told by mass media, then I think a book like this is fascinating reading, and it's in very very in another way, it's a very interesting retelling of geopolitics as well, because geopolitics can be dry, can be boring, but often when it's told in this way, it leads to a lot of insight into these aspects of our world without bogging us down with the details and the boring stuff. So once again, thank you so much. We went over time, but
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
very-
you.
It was entirely our pleasure to be on your show. Thanks for inviting us. And if you do find time to read the book, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it, and your feedback will be very important for us.
No, I am actually already reading it. I didn't want to kind of get into it because,
Super.
well, it's fun to not give it away when you don't have to. So I am reading it. I am enjoying it, and this is right up my alley, by the way. So it's completely genuine, this feedback.
Yep.
All right, thank you everybody
Thank
for
you.
joining us,
Our
and we
pleasure.
shall be back next week with another book, some more authors, and keep watching us. And hopefully soon I'm going to start doing book recommendations as well, in terms of what's on my reading list apart from the writers that I'm speaking with. And I'd love to hear from you as well on what you're reading, what you recommend we should read, and also who you'd like to see on the show. So thank you everybody, and that's it for Kaleidoscope today.